Good evening, everybody, and thank you all so much for coming out here. I apologize for the late start. We had a large crowd, and so we wanted to give a little bit more time for everyone to have an opportunity to come in. I think people will still be joining us, and that's totally okay, and that's great. So, but we do want to get started. I do appreciate everyone coming here tonight. And I hope tonight that you all learn more about how we're trying to resolve the situation on Applegate Lane as safely and as swiftly as possible, and to provide you all with the information on how we're going to do it. That's what tonight is all about, is sharing information and answering questions. And I want to start by saying that I'm sorry that you all are here tonight. I know this is not how you all want to be spending your evening. I'm sorry that you and your family have been placed in this situation. I know this may inconvenience you for a short period of time, and I want everyone here and everyone throughout this neighborhood and the entire city to know that we're working as hard as we can to make sure that we address the situation on Applegate Lane and we get it resolved as quickly as possible with as little disruption to your lives as possible. But I also want you to know, and I'm sure you're going to hear me and others say this many times tonight, that we are not going to move forward with any plan until I am satisfied that it can be done in the absolute safest possible way. So again, as mayor of Louisville, as a father, as a neighbor, as a son, as a husband, and every of the roles that I play and everyone else up here plays that's involved, I want you all to know that we know this is not the easiest situation, but we want to assure you that nothing is going to be done without first thinking about your and your family's safety. And I also want to thank you all very much for your patience. I know this can be disruptive, it can cause anxiety, and that's why we're trying to move as swiftly as possible, but more importantly, we need to move as safely as possible. As I look out here tonight, I see a number of familiar faces from when several of us up here tonight and many others from around Metro government were knocking on doors to notify you all of this community meeting. And so I appreciate people coming and attending and participating in this. You're going to hear from many people involved in Metro government and many of the community partners that are involved in this situation. And I really appreciate everything that the first responders are doing with this situation and everything else they do to keep our city safe every day. So let me just briefly talk about how this is going to work tonight. Folks up here along with me are going to provide some information with a little bit of a presentation first to give you as much information as we can right now, and also to help make sure that the questions that you all have get answered. We'll share some information about how we got here, how we're expecting to resolve this as safely and as quickly as possible, what you can expect before, during, and after, and above all, what we are doing to ensure everyone's safety. And then we'll get to your questions, which we know are incredibly important. Hopefully we answer some during the presentation, but we want to answer as many questions as we can tonight. So I think most of you or all of you should have gotten a sheet of paper when you all came in, and please write down your questions. We're going to have folks that are gathering the questions, and then Deputy Mayor for Emergency Services, David James, will be collecting those questions and making sure that as many of those get asked as possible. If you need materials to write down a question, please raise your hand and someone can get you a pen and a piece of paper. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions, so here's some folks can get some pens and paper here in the front. That would be great. And also, if you did not provide your contact information with us when you came in, please do so that will help us keep in touch as this situation develops. Before I introduce my colleagues up here with me today, let me just reiterate something that I said earlier and that, again, I think you're going to hear a lot today. We are not going to implement this monitored and controlled burn at the house on 6213 Applegate Lane until we are satisfied that we have evaluated all options and that it can be done in the absolute safest way. And so to that end, one of the agencies that we reached out to over the past week that we've been working on this is the United States Environmental Protection Agency. We have asked the EPA to come to Applegate Lane, and they will be exploring other options before we move forward with this monitored and controlled burn. So that probably means that before this might happen, it will be a little bit longer of period of time before it does. But again, safety is the #1 priority. And so we want the EPA to take a look at this to see if there are other options. We're working on parallel paths. We remain every day working to meticulously plan the burn while we're looking at this other alternative and bringing the EPA in here. Again, we want to get through this as quick as possible, just like all of you do, but safety is going to always come first. Safety for our first responders, safety for you and all your neighbors, and safety for our entire city. So please, I just wanted to provide that update since the last time we provided a public update. So let me first introduce who's up here, and then we're going to begin a couple of welcomes from some others. But actually, before we get to the introductions, let me also first see if Senior Pastor Aaron Harvey, he is our host tonight from Highview Baptist Church. Pastor Harvey was very gracious that he and his congregation are welcoming him here into his beautiful church here tonight. And so thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Excellent, thank you. Ray, we do want to say welcome to you. We are just thankful that we get the opportunity to serve our community tonight. They actually asked me to be up on that stage. I said, that's the last place I want to be tonight. So with that, but we just want to say welcome. We're here to serve you. Any way that we can serve you, we just want you to know you're welcome, and it's our privilege to serve. So please know that you're welcome here this evening, and just hope that we're able to as a community, move forward together. So Mayor, I'm going to turn it back to you, just quick.
Thank you very much, Pastor Harvey. We also have a few other elected officials with us today. We have Jarena Weathers, who's our new Commonwealth Attorney. Thank you for being with us here. Jarena and her office are handling the criminal side, along with LMPD of this matter and other matters. I think Representative Gentry was supposed to be here. I didn't see out, but he is going to be joining us. Amy Washburn and Joni Jenkins from U.S. Congressman Morgan McGarvey's office are with us. Whitney Meadow from Senator Rand Paul's office are with us too. And also Councilman Dan Syme, who represents an adjoining neighborhood, is with us here this evening. And then also up here this evening, our State Representative Emily Calloway is here. And also your Metro Councilman, Jeff Hudson, who represents this district, Metro District 23. So Councilman Hudson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Pastor Harvey and his congregation for hosting us tonight. For 75 years or more, Highview Baptist Church has had a strong history of service, not just to this community, but worldwide. I can remember not too many years ago, I was on a business trip by myself to Bangalore, India, and ran into a group from Highview Baptist Church that were there on a short-term mission trip. I think they were there to build a school, if I'm not mistaken. But it's an example of how wide the footprint of this organization is. But as long as wide as it has gotten, they have never forgotten their home. And this is their community, and they serve their community. And that was made even more clear to me this past week when, quite frankly, we were having a hard time locating a venue that would allow us to come in and host this meeting. And as soon as Pastor Harvey found out about that, he immediately offered up this beautiful facility for our use, offered the services of his staff in any way that he could, and in the same breath asked, what else can we do? So I appreciate the role model of service that Pastor Harvey and his staff model for us. And thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this panel that's up here tonight. And thank you. You're the reason we're here. You came in with questions. You came in with concerns. You came in with anxieties. Hopefully, those questions get answered, those concerns get addressed, and that anxiety gets relieved. That's our goal tonight. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councilman. One more order of business before I finish the introductions and turn it over to our MC for the evening. We do have a couple of interpreters here this evening. Sal can provide Spanish interpretation, and Mina can provide Arabic interpretation. So is there anyone asking this in English? I'm not sure if that's totally right, but is there anyone who needs interpretation services? Or Sal and Mina, do you want to ask in your respective languages if anyone needs interpretation, and then maybe they can sit in one area together? No, or you can just ask them. Sure.
Bienvenidos, buenas noches. La pregunta es si hay alguien que necesite interpretación o traducción en el idioma español. Hay otros intérpretes acá de otros diferentes idiomas con los cuales podemos ayudar. Nos pueden preguntar después de la reunión.
She's just going to ask if anybody needs Arabic service.
مرحبا، اسمي مينا. إذا أحد يتكلم باللغة العربية أقدر أساعد باللغة العربية. المترجمين الباقين ومين يتكلمون اللغات الثانية.
Tôi tên là Minh và tôi sẽ giúp chúng ta phiên dịch bằng tiếng Việt. Nếu mà ai có câu hỏi cuối buổi thì có thể, nếu không dùng tiếng Anh mà muốn dùng tiếng Việt thì tôi sẽ giúp giải thích hỏi đặt câu hỏi bằng tiếng Việt. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you all. And I'm going to, first let me introduce others that are with us this evening. We have our great partner from the Fern Creek Fire Department, Chief Nathan Mulvey, Jody Myman, who's our Louisville Metro Executive Director of our Emergency Services, Nikki Saladay from American Red Cross in the Regional Disaster Office, our Chief of LMPD, Jackie Gwynn Villaroel, Connie Mendel, the Interim Chief Health Strategist for our Louisville Metro Department of Health and Public Wellness, and also many other members from our administration as well. Deputy mayors are here, other members of our senior leadership team. We have a very large group of people, many other folks from LMPD, Public Health, Emergency Services are also joining with us that have been working with this. So now I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Mayor for Emergency Services, David James, who is going to serve as our MC for the evening and get us started. David?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everybody. A little bit of housekeeping. If you are missing a set of car keys, please see me after this event. I have them. All right. So, as the Mayor said, we want to start at the beginning and let you know how we got here. And the person that can best tell that story for us is our newly appointed permanent Chief of Police. Chief Gwynn Villaroel.
Good evening, everyone. So thank you. You're too kind. Thank you so much. So let me reiterate what our mayor has stated, that your safety is top priority for LMPD. I know that there's anxiety. I know that there's a lot of questions, and rightfully so. But I want to stress tonight that LMPD will do everything within its power in order to keep you safe and informed. So with that, how did we get here tonight? We got here because the community, you actually called the tip line to let LMPD know that there was a concern within your community. You actually dialed 502-574-LMPD. We know that that line works because that information came into my officers and they did not delay on doing their due diligence to do a proper investigation that yielded us to be here today. With that investigation, they were able to develop a plan in order to engage, as we know now, to be Mr. Hill. And within that conversation, it came to be that he expressed that he had some explosive and chemicals that should not be in his possession. So my investigators actually did their work in order to ensure that they had access into their house properly in order to discover what they found today. So with that, we're here now. And an arrest was made on Mr. Hill for wanton engagement in the first, but I'm happy to say that the Commonwealth Attorney's Office took that case and added an additional charge onto him, burglary in the first and in the second degree, because he then was actually residing unlawfully in another resident of 6211 Applegate Lane. And so henceforth, that is why the burglary charges were added onto him at this time. So the conditions of the home, as we stated before, is a hoarder type situation, which is very dangerous for anybody to be inside and to navigate through that with the unknown. What is actually going on in that home that we don't know anything about. But I am again happy to say that that particular dwelling is safer than it has ever been in years, because now we have control over it and we are around the clock monitoring that location. But I'm going to ask for your continuous cooperation as we navigate through these uncharted waters that we're in right now. And so with that, you being here tonight, asking us questions, you're listening to us as we give you proper direction, will allow everybody within this space to be safe. So that is why we're here today. But I gotta go back and say, it is because now we're having this community dialogue, and it is working, that we're getting the information needed in order for LMPD to do its job effectively and safely, and that is with your help. So again, I say thank you, and LMPD is here to serve you. If you want to show the slides, Matt, so this is the location of 6213. As you can see, the debris and other items. And this is why it's so delicate dealing with this situation. Those are our officers that are there and other state, local, and federal partners, and they have to really get suited up in order to deal with this environment. And they're only able to go into, at that time, we're only able to go into this particular dwelling place for roughly 20 minutes or less at a time because of the heat, and then plus what they were wearing. So it's truly a daunting task. That is what the home looks like on the inside. This is a situation in which we're dealing with, which is, again, I have to go back and say, is very delicate and unsafe. So again, this is why we're here, and we're just, we're grateful that we do have the location secure at this time, and we'll navigate through this together. Mayor?
Thank you. And as each of the presenters will present to you, if you have questions at what they said, just remember those questions, and when we get to the end, we'll come back to answer those questions. Next is the Chief of the Fern Creek Fire Department, Nathan Moley.
I'll echo what the chief had just mentioned. Thank you all for having us. Thank you for allowing us to be here in front of you. You know, this is, for all of us, a very challenging situation. I'm extremely thankful that there wasn't anything from an emergency standpoint involving a fire in this residence even 12 hours before the tip was given to the police department of the incident. Because if that had happened, our first responders and rescuers would have been put in a very, very bad situation and potentially not turned out so well. So I'm very thankful for you all and your active ways of engaging with the community to get us where we are. So I've been asked to speak briefly on some of the sights and sounds if or when a fire is conducted from that perspective, or what you might anticipate hearing as a result of a fire. So typically when there's a structure fire involved, Some of the things you're going to hear is loud whistling, crackling, popping. There obviously is smoke. Smoke is the process of the materials inside the house burning off and the gases as a result that enter into that smoke and then anticipate dissipation of that. In a hoarding condition, the unfortunate thing is there's a lot of circumstances where you don't know what you don't know. You know, there are times where it is unsafe for firefighting practices, which is what we do. We typically are going in to extinguish a fire. We are not in a practice of starting fires. So our job will continue to be maintained as fire protection agency, and we'll do everything we can to continue to maintain an atmosphere accordingly for our community and our first responders. I want to reassure you and our members as well that that's our continued mission and goal. And we are here to continue to support this police matter. We have from the day it began in trying to help keep them safe as well as you all. So thank you again for allowing us to be here, and hopefully we can continue to navigate this and find clarity for everybody as we work to mitigate and resolve the issues.
Thank you, Chief. And next is Jody Miner. He's the Executive Director of Emergency Services for Metro Government. Jody?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor James. So, again, I'm the Executive Director for Louisville Metro Emergency Services. So we're the overall coordinating agency for events like this, whether it's a planned event of some kind or it's an emergency or incident that happens out in the community. So we began with this as LMPD started to go into the building and they realized the magnitude of the incident, and we were working within the incident command system with them. And then once we determined the extreme magnitude that we were involved in, we set up an all hazards incident management team, and it's what we do with our larger events and our larger incidents. And what we set up a unified command with all of our partner agencies, so it's not just one person making the decisions. It's a group of people, individuals, with all the stakeholders that are playing roles in the incident. And then we created a command and general staff. And the process that we put together with this is any of our objectives that come up with whatever the determination is, with how we mitigate this problem, is all these plans are developed in this process, and they're sent up through the unified command and all the way to the mayor's office for his final approval. So we want to let the community know that it's not just one person or not just a few people that are making these decisions. We've got over 60 people right now, stakeholders within several different organizations, local, state, and federal, who are in this process right now, creating these objectives and making the decision on what's going to end up happening. So if and when potentially this burn does take place, some of the things that you can expect 24 hours before the actual burn takes place is obviously we've got to localize the street. We've got to close the street down for just residents that are on that street, so the first responders can come in and actually set up the house for the burn that's going to have to take place. We are looking for the best possible day to do this, and what I mean by that is weather. Weather can play a huge role in this. We want a nice clear day, low humidity, obviously light winds, because we want the smoke to go up as far into the atmosphere without affecting the community. And if you can imagine, if it's a cloudy day or a rainy day, that smoke is just going to crash back down into the neighborhood. So we don't want that. So obviously our partners with the National Weather Service are going to play a huge role in this for determining which day if and when, like I said, this takes place, when it's going to take place. We've got a really good messaging system and technology within Metro government, and it's called Lens Alert. It's the Louisville Emergency Notification System. If you haven't signed up, please go to louisvilleky.gov. We've got the link here that you can sign up for Lens Alert, and you choose the type of emergency notifications that you get. One of the other tools in our toolbox that we'll be able to use with messaging the community is what's called the IPAWS communication. It's the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System that we can get to you whether you've signed up for it or not. I don't want to say that to discourage people from signing up. We want you to sign up for Lens Alert. But in the event that you're not signed up, we can touch every device, every phone. It's the type of emergency you get when a tornado happens or some type of Amber Alert or other notification like that. So we have the ability to send that out from our 911 communication system. Barricades will be set up and street closures, or they will be put out in order to put those out for the next day. If an evacuation is necessary, we will provide the community up to 48 hours notice when we choose to do this. Obviously, we do not want to inconvenience anyone, but your safety is of the utmost importance, and if there is an evacuation that's necessary, we want to give you as much time to plan for that. Air monitoring is going to be set up. We've got the capability between local, state, and federal agencies to provide a magnitude of air monitoring systems where we can test the atmosphere in several different areas up to several miles away to see if we're getting any adverse conditions because of the burn. So those will be set up before and stay after, and to stay set up as long as we have to. If you're here for a family member and you'd like us to assist you or learn how to set your family member up, sign up for Lens Alert, please see us at the end and we can help you with that as well. The day of the burn, like I mentioned, we're looking for perfect weather. The iPaws and the Lens Alert will be sent out again. We'll even go back to doing the old school where our emergency service and emergency management personnel will be riding through the neighborhoods and speaking through public address systems on our vehicles, just to make sure that no one missed the evacuation. Road closures will be in place. Public safety agencies will be finishing last-minute setups of the house, and again, air monitoring is going to continue as well. And in the several hours during the controlled burn, you know what to expect. Obviously, the smoke and fire to accelerate through the building as combustibles are heated, beginning in the basement. Within the first 2 to 4 hours, the fire should consume the entire house, and then it should just collapse into the basement is what we expect, and smolder for several hours after that. And the garage will have the same effect as well. And then once the controlled burn is complete, air monitoring, we're going to keep air monitoring set out in the community as long as we need to. That footprint of an evacuation, if and when it's necessary, we can shrink that as our air monitoring results start to go down or start to be in a very positive range. So we can reduce that footprint and let certain people back into their homes. We won't have to keep the entire evacuation zone out of their homes or inconvenienced the entire time. And then cleanup will begin as soon as Unified Command and the Mayor's office determines that it's safe to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayors, where are you? See Barbara Sexton-Smith right there. Come on up here, Barbara. And I thought I saw, oh, there's Anna Maiden, Nicole George. If you all just raise your hands and let everybody see you. If you have questions or if you need an index card to ask questions with, please flag one of these outstanding deputy mayors down. Thank you. We also have great partners, and one of our great partners is the American Red Cross. And we have Nikki Saladay here. She's the Regional Disaster Officer for the American Red Cross. Nikki.
Good evening, and thank you to the Mayor's Office and the Emergency Manager's Office for inviting us to be here tonight. I'm going to keep this really short and sweet. Just want to let you know that we are here. We've been working closely with the local emergency managers, the Department of Public Health here in Louisville, as well as some of our partners, to make sure that should the need arise, we are here and able to support with our Red Cross staff, our volunteers, and our supplies as we're needed. That's all that I have. Thank you for letting us be here.
Thank you, Nikki. And we have with the Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness Interim Chief Health Strategist is Connie Mendel.
Hi, Connie Mendel, Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness. I do want to start off beginning. Your health department in Louisville has worked for years along with emergency responders, particularly emergency management, police, fire, EMS. So within our department, we do have a hazardous materials response team and continue to partner with the other agencies. And so our staff was on site early on during this, and we'll continue to be involved throughout the operations. So we will be conducting environmental monitoring, looking at air, water, and soil. And these will be doing monitoring and sampling prior to any operations, during and after. So we'll be advising along with all of the expertise that we can bring in. So we're already discussing with our state environmental partners, federal, when we talk about the US EPA, we're bringing in the resources and the experts, top of the fields. So with that, we'll be advising on any hazards that are detected and how that could potentially affect your health, and then the steps that you need to take to avoid being exposed, and how to protect yourself and your family. So we have already been conducting air monitoring in conjunction with the other agencies, and at this time, nothing has been found leaving that site. Actually, nothing has been detected leaving the structure itself.
Thank you, Connie. So next, we are going to start with some of the questions that you all have turned in. And the first one is, for neighbors not contacted, if an evacuation is deemed necessary, the demographic form will be on the Louisville Metro website. That was a statement. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. There we go. What happens if our property value drops?
I guess I get to answer the questions no one else wants to answer. We don't expect that to happen. There's nothing that we're working on right now that has given me any reason to believe that there are long-term impacts of this. Everything that we're dealing with here, even if we do have to do this monitor and controlled burn, would be short-term in nature. We are focused. That's something that we don't want to do anything that's going to cause long-term impact. Not for real estate values, but for your health. And so that's what's driving this. We are not going to do this until we are convinced that this is safe in the short term with limited evacuation and temporary, and in the long term for everyone. So that is a top of mind, and we do not expect any long-term impact.
Thank you. What if you cannot vacate your property?
Well, if there's certain circumstances, that's why we canvass the neighborhoods. That's why we're filling the paperwork out tonight, or asking you to fill the paperwork out tonight. Is special circumstances we can help alleviate any issues where somebody can't vacate, and what those issues are, and try to overcome that, and help in any way that we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, also one other note on that, for example, if I know many of you all have pets, if there is a temporary evacuation, we would encourage you all to leave with your pets. If that's not possible, we'll be able to provide services so Louisville Metro Animal Services can care for them during the period of time. Things like that with unique circumstances, we will make every accommodation that we can make.
Thank you. What mitigation for rodents? What mitigation for rodents on site? I'm guessing if there are rats in the location.
We haven't had if there's anything in the house, it will be consumed in the fire. If there's any issue, we'll work with the community any way we can. And it's something else, like I said, we're going to be monitoring that situation, even with particulate monitors, to see where the smoke's actually falling if it does get into the community. So if that's the case, then we'll work with neighbors to try to help out.
there will be, again, this is going to be as short a duration as possible, but there will be a significant amount of LMPD presence around the area. I don't know, Chief, if you want to speak to that further. But
That is such a valid question. So you will have LMPD doing directed patrols in your area. We know how sensitive this is. We know that others will know that you have left your home. So again, you will have LMPD heavy presence in the area in order to guard your home. But we're going to be asking you too, if you do not have an alarm system or a camera system in place, I would just ask for you to just go ahead and get that done as well to help us. But we will have heavy presence in the area.
Thank you. Next question is there a map of the area?
we don't know what an evacuation area would look like yet, because it will all depend on, as Jody was saying, plume analysis, weather conditions at the time, continued analysis that we're doing right now. So we knocked on just under 1,000 doors in a radius around the home last week. Our hope is that the area would be much smaller than that, and it'll depend on weather conditions, but we just don't know yet. So there is no map, but that will be widely broadcast and shared extensively before this happens.
Thank you. If we want or need other lodging options if an evacuation is needed, will it be reimbursed?
Right now, if and when we have to set a shelter up, we're expecting that everyone will go to that shelter if they can't get to stay with family members or friends in other locations. So the shelter that we set up, we will take care of food. If it's overnight by some chance, we will take care of those accommodations as well with our good partners from the Red Cross and other agencies.
Thank you.
Again, our hope is this is as short as possible. This will be done during daytime hours. And our hope and everything we're planning for right now, and based on all the information as we have, is that this will be a very short time in duration.
Yes, we don't want anyone to have any kind of financial constraints due to this issue.
Thank you. What is the risk to our first responders?
And that is part of the reason why this is one of the paths that we're going down right now, is because, as you saw the conditions from the home that the chief showed, for our first responders to be in those in that hazmat suits and the other protective gear that they have to wear to be in this home, it is very difficult to maneuver and operate safely. And combine that with the fact that it's a hoarder's house, and so our robotic equipment cannot go in there to remove all of the material because of that. That's why we find ourselves in this position. Now, as I mentioned, we are in conversations with the EPA. They are coming to town, they are assessing the situation, and they might have a different strategy that can address this. And if they do, that is something that we are certainly going to very seriously consider. But with the local resources that we have, we've reached out to many private sector contractors over the course of the past week, based on the other folks that we have talked to that are experienced in this area. This is the path, and again, we continue to work parallel paths with the EPA right now.
Thank you. And how will JCPS change its bus routes if necessary?
So we have, I think that's a to be determined question. There is a bus stop very nearby. You all know the bus routes better than I do, but we have been in close contact with JCPS on this, and we will certainly plan accordingly with them beforehand, but we don't have an answer yet on that. Part of it depends on, what day it happens. Does it happen on a weekday or a weekend and things like that? So that's still up in the air.
Thank you. Can we be forced to leave?
In a situation like this, due to the declaration of the disaster, that's what we're looking into. We ask for your support in trusting our judgment and believing in us to, if we ask you to leave and we ask you to seek shelter, like I said, we're asking you to trust that. But legally, that's something we're looking into.
Thank you. Can my pet stay in the house?
As I mentioned earlier, we would advise you, if your house is under the the area of evacuation, we would encourage everyone to take their pets with them.
Thank you. And how will this affect my garden?
You know, again, Connie might take this one.
Yeah, so as far as gardens, right now with the health department, we've got two main priorities. So we're looking to fully identify the hazards and then characterize those. So with that, we're working with within our team and experts. So we're working with the CDC, working with the state environmental group, air pollution control districts and everything. So that research is ongoing. One of the things that's hugely fortunate about this incident is that we have time. That, as Chief Mulvey said, this wasn't a fire, it wasn't an EMS run where somebody was seriously hurt. So we have time to fully investigate and research this. So we will let you know, as far as your garden, if there's a particular way you should wash your vegetables afterwards or your produce. We'll be providing that information to you.
Thank you. And when will the yards be safe for children to be able to play?
And the same idea, I don't want to give you any answers unless I'm certain. So we are absolutely working with the most expert people in the country to get that information, and we'll share that. Most things, again, looking at the plume modeling, we'll be able to monitor anything as far as operations, as far as ash. Generally, you're going to see ash from a standard structure fire. So a lot of that is rinsing down, and we're going to advise beforehand if you're in the very immediate area to cover your pool ahead of time, just so you're not clogging up your filters.
Thank you. And is there a plan to burn both homes?
No. We are just focused on 6213. We've been able to go through the house at 6211, and we believe that structure is safe, and anything that's dangerous has been removed from that home manually by people. And let me just say one other thing about the last question as well. Just to, we've said this, but just to reiterate, right now, the situation is safer than it has been in years. We, of course, didn't know how dangerous it was until very recently, as the chief described. But right now, there should be no concern about kids playing in the yards or anything like that. There's no reason to believe there's any kind of leakage of any of these chemicals or anything like right now. So kids can, and everyone here can be outdoors as normal. There's nothing different about the air or ground at this point in time, and we believe it's safer than it has been.
Thank you. And what have other communities done in this situation?
So we've reached out to several subject matter experts throughout the United States, and unfortunately there's not been many situations like this. So over the past 15 years, they think it's only been about 8 to 10 times that this has ever happened. So we've been communicating with some of the agencies. There's been a lot of turnover, obviously, and some of the people that were involved in those situations aren't around anymore to be able to communicate with. But our federal partners from across the country have put us in touch, and we've actually spoke with two of those areas to see what they did. But unfortunately, even in those situations, they weren't the same as we're dealing with here, with the potential for explosives, the chemicals involved, and in the hoarding conditions. There's just not many situations that's happened like that throughout the United States.
There have been, what Jody's referring to, there have been, we believe, about 8 to 10 other situations where there was a monitor and controlled burn of a house that was known to contain substances that aren't great. California, I can't remember where the other ones were, but it's various parts of the country.
Thank you. Should we turn off our air conditioners at the time of burn?
Yes.
And who will clean up our yards? I'm gonna combine this together. Who will clean up our yards? What about koi ponds? And what about swimming pools?
I think the answer there is what Connie just said. I mean, we would encourage people, if they do have koi ponds or swimming pools, to cover them if you're in the area. beyond that, we'll provide other information, but we'll do all of the monitoring, but we don't expect at this time.
Yeah, so we will have monitoring and sampling, so that will be beforehand, so we have that baseline number during any operations and after, and if needed, long-term, days, weeks, whatever is needed, anytime, if anything is detected. So with that sampling, that would identify what, if anything, is left as far as a residue, and then we would have specific information for that potential hazard.
Thank you. Has the house been tested for radioactivity?
Yes, our partners from the 41st CST with the state of Kentucky, they came in and did that, and it was determined that there could have been very small, but it could have been something just normally in a house anyway, so they removed that, and there's no more in the house. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, the yard would be the same thing. So we'll have sampling, and we're going to set up immediately and all the way around in different phases. So it's just not at the house. It'll be the immediate area, and then we'll continue to go out. You think of circles around. So with the sampling and monitoring, if anything is detected, we'll be able to identify what it is, and if you need to use a special way to clean it up or not. So we'll have that information, and we're going to do that before any operations. So we'll know what's there beforehand, what's there during, and what's after.
If that is necessary, we will assist, just like as Jody was talking earlier about power washing. No one in this room did anything to cause the situation that we're all now here having to deal with and talk about. And so we do not want this to be a burden on anyone. We want to mitigate every possible burden. That's why this is taking time. That's why we have so many people working on it. But we will assist if that is something that is needed.
Thank you. Are there any safe shelter in place options available?
Is that like right now, or?
I think
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to determine whether we can have one or multiple shelter options, but they will be safe shelter options out of the area for people to go to.
Thank you. And how will this affect senior living facilities?
So we're communicating with them. We've got the local fire department that's went by to see what their needs may be and how many people potentially they would have at any time during that or inside that building, and we'll accommodate as needed if it's determined that any of those facilities need sheltering.
Thank you. And what will we find when we return to our homes?
Our hope is just like you left it.
All right. How do we prepare our homes if we have to evacuate?
A few of the things that we've talked about tonight, or if you have a pool or a koi pond or something like that that you want to cover just from an ash perspective, as you heard, we are going to request that people turn off their HVAC systems just so there's less of an air intake. But I believe
Shut their windows.
Shut the windows. Fireplace?
Just shut the flue on your fireplace.
So, next question is, will businesses be compensated if they have to close during a temporary evacuation?
We're looking into that with the federal government and any kind of public assistance that could be needed, but we haven't got that determination yet.
And can particulates enter our homes?
If you take the precautions that we've mentioned earlier, it should eliminate anything from getting into your homes.
Where will the water used by the fire department go to put out the fire?
All right, sorry. So most likely, in the event that this was to take place, the department would be setting up unmanned monitors around the home, particularly to protect the surrounding properties. And I believe that MSD has worked on trying to develop a plan on capturing that water, specifically as it's distributed. But the intent would be that it would be similar to a water curtain that you might see with a sprinkler system that would be set up to assist in creating a little bit of a thermal barrier between the actual house itself and the surrounding properties.
Thank you. Who will pay if my house is damaged?
I mean, that's what we will work on with everybody on, and that's what, as Jody was mentioned, we're talking to our federal partners about that. That's one of the reasons we declared a state of emergency. That's something that we've talked to others about, but we do not expect anyone to have to bear that type of loss.
Thank you. And will groundwater be affected?
No. Groundwater. We don't expect that.
Well, we will be doing groundwater testing. So we'll be doing, again, we'll take pre-operations testing, we'll collect samples.
We don't expect that it will, and as Connie said, we will be monitoring. I mean, one.
Yeah, and that's why we'll be doing the testing. We'll not only be monitoring, but sampling. So we will have that information. We'll do pre-sampling during and post. And any water that, sorry? Yes, she asked if that information would be shared, and it will be.
And keep in mind as well, we don't expect to put a lot of water on the fire. We want to let it burn as long as we can let it burn to consume anything inside of there. As, again, I said earlier, we expect it to fall into the basement, which will hold it inside of there as well. So we don't expect to use a lot of water in this situation.
Yeah, as the chief said, this is almost the exact opposite of everything they are trained to do every day, and that's put out fires as quickly as possible. If this is the path we go down, we want this house and everything within it to be incinerated. Just one other general comment is we are, and I hope this is beginning to show it of our activities and our communication over the past week. We are communicating, we plan to communicate all of this information, whether it is good, bad, neutral, whatever it is. Everyone has every right to know, and that's why we're doing a meeting like this. We're answering questions to the best of our ability right now, and we will continue to. And if for some reason, if we go down this path, and if afterwards for some reason things happen that we didn't expect, we will be very active with communicating that information. Everyone's safety and health is the #1 concern here.
So just a side announcement, we received a note from a Spanish-speaking group that is wanting to get an update on what the meeting is about, everything that has transpired. So what I'm going to tell them is that I will provide a recap at the end of the meeting. Para los que hicieron la pregunta acerca de qué es lo que pasa en esta reunión, después de que la reunión termine, yo me puedo reunir con ustedes y darles un resumen de lo sucedido esta noche. Gracias.
Thank you, sir. We heard that there has already been a burn or detonation at the property. Can you explain this? I have cancer and have to be careful. Have we already been exposed?
Our understanding is, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can only speak from the Burns perspective. We're not aware of anything since we've been called out to the incident a week and a half ago, roughly, when the warrant was first served, of any burn activity in the home.
I mean, I heard from Mr. Hibble's neighbor that he had, done some explosions in the past on July 4th and at other periods of time, but other than that anecdotal information.
Yes, our bomb squad did destroy, as we indicated at the first press conference, picker acid. It was a small amount, so we were able to successfully destroy that without any further duress on the house or anyone else.
Thank you. During the time of the burn, will our utilities be shut off?
No, we don't expect to have to do that at all. We've already started to take the utilities off the house in question, but we don't expect your utilities to be shut off at all.
How will schools and churches be affected?
We'll be working with all of them in the affected areas. I mentioned earlier, we're in regular communication with JCPS, and depending on what the area might be, as it impacts churches or senior homes or other things like that, we'll be in close contact.
Will you provide a list of the chemicals?
Right now, we provided the information that was in the affidavit. That was the extent of what we're providing at this time due to the nature of the criminal investigation. But every agency that we're working on, from the EPA to the state agencies, public health, everyone involved has that information.
Are any other charges being filed due to the impact to the community?
We up here are not aware of any at this time, but again, this case is still under investigation, both from LMPD's perspective. The Commonwealth Attorney is working on that as well. But at this time, we're not aware of any.
How will LMAS house animals since they are full? So I believe Ashley Book is here. Ashley, where are you? There you are. So this is Ashley Book. She is director of Louisville Metro Animal Services.
Hi, everyone. So great question. So yes, we are absolutely full. We will not be housing your animals at the shelter, but we are working with partners like the Kentucky Humane Society to set up a temporary shelter. If you can't leave with your pets or give them to a family member or friend for that time being, we will work with you to set up a temporary shelter to be able to house them during that time.
All right. How will we communicate the monitoring and other communications from Metro government? So you all have those blue sheets that you filled out with your phone numbers and email addresses. That's how we will reach out and communicate with you. We'll also be doing it through social media and on our website. So that's why it's very important if you all fill out that information that we are able to communicate with you better.
Sign up for Lynn's Alert, not just for this situation, but any emergency notification. Download the Smart 911 app and fill out a personal profile, and it really helps streamline the time that 911 call takers have to answer or have to ask you questions. So Lynn's Alert and Smart 911.
All right. Could you please compare this to the Ohio train derailment?
So this is a totally different situation. If you think about the Ohio train derailment, that was 1.1 million pounds of a hazardous chemical known as vinyl chloride. So, you know, the chemicals that are in this house are in smaller quantities. So it's nothing like the Ohio train derailment.
Thank you.
And also, we are planning, that was an unexpected accident again with exponentially more material in it, and this is being planned for.
So we're going to have about 5 more minutes of these questions being answered, and then members of the panel will be out in the audience talking to you all. You can speak with them.
And there are also other members also, David, additionally. I mean, there are other members from the
And
administration.
there are other members from the administration here that you can ask questions of also. Sorry about that. What fire department will back up and assist the Fern Creek Fire Department?
Well, fortunately, here in Jefferson County, we're blessed to have a ton of mutual aid support. All of the suburban Jefferson County districts have already reached out and advised they would be able to support, in addition to Louisville Fire and Shively. And that's typical. For those who do not know, we actually have a pretty consistent operating model where we share resources regularly with one another. So operational plans are being developed for if and when this does occur to make sure that, in the event that we are manning this incident, something else happens, we have strike teams and resources available to continue to protect the areas not engaged in this activity.
So this question came in Spanish. How do we know that this individual acted alone? And are there any other homes in danger, or is this individual using this situation as a decoy? We've checked with LMPD, with Chief, and the answer is that this individual is acting alone. There's no other homes in any kind of danger. So I will translate that. Su pregunta es de que cómo sabemos si este individuo actuó por su propia cuenta o si hay algún otros peligros en otras residencias. Y la respuesta, de acuerdo a la jefa de policía, es de que este individuo actuó por su propia cuenta, no es parte de ningún grupo y no hay otras residencias en peligro.
Where will any additional resources for fire stage at the time of the controlled burn?
As I mentioned earlier, we're working on a plan. Just as you guys are evacuating, our first responders want to make sure that we're safe as well. So we're trying to establish a plan for how that will be controlled and contained with our equipment as well as our resources. Some of the information will be based on the modeling and stuff at the time, based on weather conditions, what that radius looks like, how far out our equipment will need to be for our people to be safe as well. So once that's established, we'll have a plan in place and hopefully be better informed in the future.
Thank you. And how long do we have to file any claims for damage?
We'll communicate with the community after the incident to see if there's any damages in the area and to also see if there's any funding federally that can come back and help as well. What's known as individual assistance in situations that when the federal government gets involved. So we'll communicate that. We'll have certain locations that you can go to express any damage or show any damage that you may have had. But again, we're not expecting that. Due to the modeling we've done, previously, years ago, and I come from the fire service, we could burn houses for training years ago, and we were able to do a really good job of keeping, and obviously they didn't have chemicals in there, or it wasn't a hoarding condition, but we know the dynamics of how buildings burn. So, like I said, we expect this to burn, but it's not a frame house. It's got Bedford stone on the outside, so we expect this, when it burns, to fall into the basement. So we don't expect any issues with any of your homes, but we will address that if it's needed.
Thank you. And will notices be communicated in other languages?
Yes, and that's why we had 4 interpreters here tonight with 4 different languages, and we will continue to do that. And if we need to add additional languages to that list, we will do that.
We have time for one more question. How long will the monitoring continue?
As long as necessary.
All right. Well, with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, just in conclusion, first, thank you all so much again for coming. Hopefully, we have provided some information and answered some of the questions. There are many members from throughout Metro government and other partner agencies that will continue to stay here to answer questions. If you have questions in the lobby or here in this room here, we will release information that summarizes these questions, and we'll add to them if there were others that we were not able to get to. And finally, I just want to say something that I already said, but just to reiterate, we want to do this as swiftly as possible, but more importantly, we want to do it as safely as possible. And that's why we've asked the EPA to come here to explore other options before we move forward with the monitored and controlled burn. We are working on parallel paths, but we will not proceed until we are confident that this is going to be the safest possible option for you all, for our first responders, and for our entire city. So thank you all so much for coming, and we'll continue to stay in touch. Really appreciate it.